I like, I could tell that I was making the other rappers and other artists feel uncomfortable as well.
Uh-huh.
And like I don't blame them. I was so and it's not that I was scared. It's more just like I have literally have zero experience in this environment or in
Mm.
this genre of music. So you know, of course that's going to be the case. And I think I actually changed quite a lot by making friends with people there and sort of having a wider view on genres of music
Yeah.
because I think I had like I had a stereotypical view of being like, oh, all rap music's the same, and not trying to be dismissive, but like
Yeah.
just not understanding the like subgenres and like how different everything is, and like I ended up finding music I really liked
Mm.
within various genres of different people doing it.
Yay. Well, let me officially welcome you with a round of applause from me, and then when people watch it, they'll all be going like that. Wow. Lauren Deakin Davies, welcome to Kredd. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. Musician, composer, engineer, producer, youngest member of the Music Producers Guild. Ridiculous list of records that you've done for someone so young. So much to talk about, but let's start right now.
Okay.
Where are you? Because it looks very interesting.
Thank you. This is quite fancy. This is not my personal studio.
Uh-huh.
This is at the studio I work at, and I currently work at Gary Barlow's studio in London.
Which I was going to ask you about. How did that come about?
I was thinking about that today because I was talking to some friends and I was like, it's just so obscure, isn't it? Obviously there's the long story of like my background, but the short story is at the back end of 2018, I won the European Pro Sound Award for Breakthrough Studio Engineer. And I met the legendary Fraser T. Smith there, and I did a little speech, and it was an audio award, so no one does speeches. So I think he came up to me and was like, well done. And I was like, thank you. And he invited me to hang out with the studio. And then his engineer was Manon Grandjean, who's an amazing engineer, mix engineer. You should check her out. So I like hung out with her for a bit. And then it turned out they were working on Craig David's album, and Gary was writing some of the stuff for the Craig David album,
Right,
and so
okay.
they were doing a couple of sessions together, and then Gary mentioned to Manon that he was looking for like a new producer that plays guitar and writes music and specializes in Logic, and as far as I'm aware she was like,
That's you.
yeah. So she sent over my information, and then I had an interview with Gary on the Friday, and then I had got the job on the Monday, and then I was in the studio with Craig David and Gary on the Tuesday.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That within itself is amazing that it was just came from that link of you actually just then getting the award and doing a speech and then getting the feedback from that, which then gets that little sort of, it's almost like domino effect.
Hugely, yeah.
Yeah, because and I know a lot of people starting out, and I've got a few questions from people who are like, oh, could you ask Lauren this? I'll come to those at the end.
Oh, do people actually do that? That's so
Yeah,
lovely.
they did, yeah, actually. But a lot of people, I mean, obviously, sort of musicians, producers, engineers, we kind of know this because it's like you meet someone, you do something, they recommend you. But a lot of people that from the outside who are watching these, they're like, I think they find it fascinating. It's like, how does that come about? You know, it's like if you hadn't won that award and or made that speech, you wouldn't be now sitting where you are, and then you wouldn't have had the interview, and then 3 days later you're in the studio with one of Take That and Craig David.
I know.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's funny as well when you like amalgamate it like that as well.
When you try and put like a narrative timeline on how these things happen, it's almost like sliding doors. You know, the sliding doors film is like, oh no, if I better not turn right, because then my career will be over, and then you'd be kind of like paralyzed with not ever making a decision in case it's the wrong one.
Definitely.
Yeah. So let's flip you back in time. What was it about music that you went, I need to do that?
In all honesty, I'm like really dyslexic and was like really, really bad at school. Quite a classic story I hear of most people in the industry. And I ended up getting like kicked out of school when I was 16, 17 because I wasn't taking it seriously enough. Which was honestly, I guess, like a big catalyst for like things. But the reason why I wasn't taking school seriously was because I had been in band since I was like 11, which I now realize is not a normal age to start a band. But at the time I was like, God, I've like really got to get on with this, you know, kind of thing.
Come on,
we
quick.
were terrible. I know, exactly. And we were called Loud Wednesdays because we did band practice on Wednesdays and our music was really loud.
Fair enough.
You know, self-explanatory. And then I was in another band that was like a folky band, which then turned into like a pop band. So I was doing music throughout the whole time I was at school anyway. But yeah, around 16, 17, we started working with Island Records, which was crazy. And I'm not necessarily an advocate of always just putting your music out there or always just doing stuff just in case someone sees it. But the reality was someone did just see it on... I think it was on SoundCloud, or they saw a music video because we were completely independent. And then we got scouted that way. But we ended up not working with Ireland or anything, but we all collectively got kicked or dropped out of school, the three of us in the band. So I think that kind of like was like a big moment in music. And then at that point, the other two girls in the band went to uni, and I was like, I don't want to do that. And so I just went to the shed at the bottom of my garden, and I had my old laptop using Cubase and laptop speakers and like using the laptop microphone, and learnt how to use like a DAW by using Audacity.
Right, blimey.
And I just sort of recorded from that, and then I ended up like investing in some gear. Like my dad had some speakers, so he just let me like hi-fi speakers, and I used those, and then he had a microphone as well, so I used that, and then this like little interface that has like 2 jacks in, 2 jacks out, and a USB, so you could plug it into your computer, and then I recorded my first EP for someone for free, and then I had that EP, and then I'm going a lot of detail here. Do you want me to carry on?
Yeah, please do.
I had the first EP, and then I could use that as an advert, and I was like, yo, I'm a record producer. Listen to my docile folk tunes. And then I charged the next person £10 a song.
Right.
And then I did 5-track EP for them, and then I had £50. So then I bought another microphone. Like a better microphone. And then I charged the next person £20 a song. But by that EP... I was 18 at the time, and one of the tracks got played on BBC Radio 2.
Wow.
Which was like insane, and I was like, oh wow, I must not be terrible at this then for them to think that it's okay. And then I think I ended up being like one of the youngest female producers to like have a track on Radio 2, which then was firmly in my bio for years to come.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I just built up the studio in that way, and loads of the projects I had done were just in the den, as I called it. And then I worked at Sound Lab Studios for a while, and then I ended up with this job.
I mean, that's amazing. That whole sort of pathway is amazing, isn't it? Because obviously, you know, you weren't taking school seriously. Well, obviously you were, but they weren't catering for you. You know, you didn't want to go, oh no, I really want you to kick me out. You know, it's like, well, you're not catering for me, so all right, you're kicking me out. Then I'm in a band that sort of is happening, and then the other two go to uni, so you just go, I'll do it myself.
Yeah.
With no experience whatsoever, no equipment, not even a microphone.
No. I know, I don't know. The thing was, when we were in the studio, though, when I was in the band, we were in lots of amazing studios, so I was like, this is the best thing ever! And I must have been so annoying to all of the engineers, because I was like, what are you doing? What does that do? Oh, can you change the colour of a track? Whoa. Kind of thing. And the other two, don't want to be cliche about it, but like they were just kind of sitting on their phones at the back of the room, which, you do whatever you need to do in the session, whatever you need to do to relax or do your best performance. So, it's just different people,
Yeah. So then, so obviously, if we go from there, obviously there's loads of things in between, soundbox and sort of balcony TV and all those sort of things. But to go from there as like I've almost like invented myself as a producer, and then oh my God, I've been played on Radio 2, the youngest female producer ever on Radio 2. Boom in the bio, to now being at like quite a well-known person's studio as assistant and also as an engineer, but not having done the route which a lot of traditional engineer people did. Back in the day, they did the sort of the Tonmeister engineering science thing, or then people went to music colleges to do their sound engineering, sound production courses. But you haven't done any of that. So is yours, everything you've done is purely from being curious and asking and working it out yourself?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because when people ask for advice on like how to get into it, I always say like, oh, like watch YouTube videos and stuff. But the reality is I didn't even watch YouTube videos. I don't know what it was. I just really clicked on a lot of buttons. And I think that's maybe why I ended up having a bit, I wouldn't say I had a unique sound, but like you could tell when I produced something. And I guess it's because I hadn't been taught at all. It was purely through preference. So a lot of the things I ended up producing were just the preference of how I think a vocal should be in a mix.
Yes.
I think also I need to credit my mum here because she's incredible and completely like supported me along the way. And she ended up, after I started doing some recordings, she ended up setting up a record label called Folkstock, and we would like a tag team. And this is how I ended up getting so many tracks out, was because she would find that artist and then I would produce, find them, shoot them down the bottom of the garden to the den. I'd mix it and like, track it and everything, shoot it back up. She'd promo it and then it would like get out there. So that's, I'm very lucky and privileged that I had that combo.
Wicked. I mean, that's so cool, though. But it is, isn't it? Because, I mean, one of the questions was, in fact, I'll throw it out now. How do you get started as a producer? So your situation is probably quite different from other people. And as you said, watch YouTube videos, but you didn't. And a lot of people would go, well, you need to go learn all the ins and outs, go and take a course in it. You didn't do that.
Yeah.
So I kind of like outside looking in, probably was thinking, well, you've done it completely the wrong way round, but it was the right way for you.
I don't think I would have been able to do it quite in the same way. But my advice really is, I think, is still applicable to anyone at any stage, is I found a lot of my clients from when I was gigging myself or going to open mics. Yeah. And so I'd either speak to the band whilst I'm there and be like, yo, have you got like anything recorded? Do you want to get some things recording? Especially at open mics. No one has music recorded usually at open mics. So you can get them right at the early stages, and they're people that kind of match your skill set as well. So they're not going to be pissed off with you if it doesn't sound like the best thing ever, because they're like either, they're paying 20 quid for it, So, that like a good bit of advice there. And then the other thing is like, I ended up working with Laura Marling when I was like 19. And that was because someone suggested me to a session, and that's because through the MPG, and that's because I just went to loads of events and I could go to so many things. So if you can afford to, with your time or with your money, you end up making quite a big return like on extra jobs if you can go to the networking events. But I know that not everyone can, so I can't just sit here and be like, go to networking events. But they're the two bits, like go to open mics, find clients that way, and go to other events where people can suggest you. Now
that's, well, again, it's the, I mean, because my background's like going back into the dark ages compared to yours, like pre-internet. But the same sort of thing applied. It was like, it's making connections, almost like face-to-face connections as well. Meeting people at open mic events and gigs, and then going to things and talking to people. And if you're a nice person, then people are like, oh, that person XYZ is really cool. And they may then check your stuff out and go, oh, actually they're talented as well, or they're not an idiot. Maybe I'll work with them. Whereas I think a lot of people think if they just put lots of stuff online. I'm not talking about as a band getting signed, because obviously you put the stuff out and then you got the sort of the Island Records hookup. But I think it's like to showcase yourself as a person as well, because people want to work with people.
So true. I was just gonna use an example of that. When I was 17, I forgot to mention it in the list of things that happened, but I got hired working at Cream Room Sound Productions, and that was because Martin, who's incredible, he had recorded me when I was in my band for a bit, and he knew that I was really interested in music production and everything. And they had a new client in, and she was 14, and there were the two older. There was Martin and John there, and they're fantastic. But I think that Martin kind of thought, oh, it might be better to get a young woman in, because then it might help this other girl feel more comfortable. And I ended up just working in the studio from that capacity. And that's Alexa Mullins, who ended up going on the Nina Nesbitt tour, and we're like best friends. So it's I don't know, I have so many friends from just being like producing them, like genuine friends. So, but anyway, I just thought that was an example of like being someone who is friendly and approachable really does mean that you can get work even if you don't have experience.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a guy called Mitch Mitchener was saying exactly the same thing. He's a producer, and he's done Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes and loads of stuff. He did the same thing as you, basically. I mean, he did go to a sound college, but he was saying he was living in Watford. He went to college in London. He said when everyone graduated on the same day, 70 engineers graduated on the same day. Are there 70 jobs at studios? No. Couldn't get a job anywhere. So he just started recording bands in Watford. He had his laptop, a couple of mics. One happened to be Frank Carter, who then went on to form, Orchestra of Wolves, and the Gallows and all that. And then the whole thing just went from there, doing the same thing. And he's saying one of the things is like, well, just try to be enthusiastic and nice with people, and everyone responds to that. And it's kind of like you can learn as you go along, isn't it? It's like being in a band. It's like you don't know how to make a record when you make a record. It's
so true. It's nice it's so funny when you do hear a lot of the other stories of how people ended up getting into it, because they just, you have to be innovative, you have to be inventive to actually be able to craft your path in it. You can't just necessarily assume that all of the standard paths are going to work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this leads me on to one of the questions we've got, which I thought was very good, though I think it might have been from your mum. I didn't know it was at the time. How did you get over your fear as a young producer of thinking, am I as good as the more experienced, well-known producers? Particularly early doors, now you've built up a name and people are like, oh, they want to work with you. But when you were just gone past I'm charging £20 a song, I've moved up now and I've got more microphones and I've got some outboard gear. Now I'm properly producing.
I mean, thanks, Mum. If it was her. The irony is I would say that when I was starting out, you're so naively arrogant.
Yeah.
I was not scared. I was not scared probably until I started working on the bigger projects. It probably wasn't until I was in my early 20s that I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, the audacity of myself to be like, yeah, I could do that, kind of thing. But without that naive optimism about everything, that's the only way you can. I think it's the only way you can really do it is just by blindly believing in yourself. Because as you get older and more experienced, you realize there is so much you don't know. And probably my confidence is maybe at the lowest it's been in my career because I'm working with the highest clients. So it's I'm like, oh my God, not that the other clients I worked with in the past weren't great, but just, public.
Yes. Yeah.
Face.
Yeah.
So, I would say it's, the thing is you always are going to be trying your best.
Of course.
So if the best that you can do is not enough, then that's fine, and you're still starting out, and it will be okay.
Yeah.
But ultimately, okay, I'm going to use the Laura Marling one as a really good example. So I knew I wasn't skilled enough to do the session, but I was like, yes, I can do this. And my thought process is more, okay, if I've landed the job, how am I going to work backwards from it? So I was like, I actually don't know how to use Pro Tools, and the session was entirely in Pro Tools. And I was like, how am I going to get around this? So I was like, I'll get my friend who is a really good producer and Pro Tools, someone who can drive Pro Tools really well, which is Rihanna Meyer, who you might know. And so I brought her, I spoke to the management and I was like, oh yeah, could I bring in another engineer just, so we can make sure that the session works really well and stuff. And I got her in, and I'm going to be honest, she did everything. I was just there. But it's and now we both have that to share. We both grew. We both learnt from that, and it's a really good credit to have. And I don't know, I kind of use that mentality always. Same with Balcony TV. Just said yes and then worked it out backwards.
Love that. I love that. It's that, but it is that spirit though, isn't it? As if you really analysed it, you'd be like, almost like, again, paralysed to do it, because you go, but I don't know this and I don't know that. Well, no one ever knows everything, do they?
Yeah.
Even producers have been working for 50 years. They're probably afraid of some new plugin someone's mentioned, they've never even seen it. They're not going to go, cancel the session. I can't do it. They're going to go, okay, let's work around it. That's awesome. I love that. It's like, it's in Pro Tools. But you chose a really sensible option, because you could go, how on earth am I going to learn Pro Tools? Like, tomorrow? Not. Why don't I get someone who I'm friends with who can do it? And then you created something really cool. Yeah.
I have definitely done. I mean, I can use Pro Tools a bit better now. I have to, but we use Logic here. Like, everyone uses Logic at Gary's. He uses Logic. But yeah, there was another job before this Gary one. I'm not going to say what it was, but it was a really bloody big project. And they were like, oh, we needed someone to drive Pro Tools for this and edit in Pro Tools. And I was like, yeah, I can totally 100% do that. So I ended up just getting lessons. I paid for lessons, because I was like, I want a crash course. I asked my friends. I just was doing Pro Tools all the time. And then it came down to it. And basically they were like, you're just, no. But then they were, but then it meant that I ended up having this Gary job. So, this is so much more tailored to my skill set. It's literally tailored to my skill set. So I guess it's one of those things where you might not get something, but if you carry on going, you'll learn something else. Oh,
absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's a really good thing that a lot of people get put off with, particularly like young musicians, songwriters, engineers, producers. If they hit a brick wall, it's actually not supposed to be easy. It's that thing of the people who persevere are the ones who will get somewhere. It's like, when I started in bands, you'd be in a band and then everyone else would go and do something else, so you'd form another band, and then before you know it, they've all left. But all other people around the area have had the same experience. You all end up getting together with them.
Yeah.
Because they're the same lunatics who think it's okay, just through sheer enthusiasm and stubbornness. We're going to get a record deal. It'll be fantastic. It is that almost, it's naivety mixed with desire, stubbornness, stupidity, and a lot of hope, I suppose, and talent, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't know the format of this interview, but I would love to hear more about how you got into doing production and stuff.
Oh, blimey. Well, I was in a band at school who were awful. But it's that sort of
classic
thing. Yeah, it's what everyone does. You form a band. And mine was, I just moved to that school. I'd moved from Liverpool to the Midlands, and I had no friends. And the tough kids came up to me in the playground, and they started giving me a lot of aggro because of my accent.
Yeah.
And one said, "Oh, can you play the bass guitar?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course I can." Didn't even own
my God,
one.
yes,
Didn't even
this is
own
such the
one.
key, isn't it?
It's almost like the Pro Tools moment. Of course I can. Shit. So the rehearsal was next week. So I borrowed £20 off my dad, got a bass guitar and an amp for 20 quid. I know. I mean, 20 quid in 1985 was probably about 50 quid now. But all the same, it was awful. Learnt one scale and went to a rehearsal. Fortunately, they were a punk band, so they didn't mind too much that I could only play a G major scale. And none of the songs were in G major. And then you start to work out little bits and you ask questions. What's that thing you're playing? Oh, it's a D chord. Oh, where's that on the bass? Oh.
Yeah.
And you make the little dots and connections. And then that carries on different bands and people fall away. And then you end up meeting in that area. You always like a connection of people you meet at gigs. So people in other bands would then leave their band because they'd all left or gone to uni, and then go, well, why don't we get a band together? Same thing, and then before you know it, we had a record deal, and we were signed to Phonogram.
Congrats.
I know, and we were awful. I mean, the deal was just terrible as well. They were spending all this money on a band who were horrendous. So engineered ourselves to get dropped from the label, to walk away from £350,000 debt that we owed them. And they're like, you will never work in the business again. Ocean Colour Scene are over, you will never work. And we're like, well, we've saved up enough money to rent a studio in Birmingham, and we worked out how to do it ourselves. So I got a 1/4-inch tape machine, 16-track desk, 4 mics, compressor and a reverb, and 2 headphones, and recorded the album Moseley Shoals, and I engineered it all.
Oh, that's so cool.
We had 4 microphones. Tried to mix it, or it was like, it doesn't sound as good as anything else. So then some friends of ours who was the guy who was producing Stanley Road by Paul Weller and the engineer, they're like, we'll come up to yours, just give us a few quid and we'll mix it.
Whoa.
And then we started mixing it and we're going, oh my God, this is a proper record.
Yeah.
Sent a few demos, rough mixes out, and then final mixes. And then another major label said, we'll sign you, but we only want to give you a little bit of money to do the record. And we were like, yes, we finished it, don't tell them.
Yeah.
So we had that advance is fine, great.
Wow. Yeah, so then you can actually just like live off the advance.
Yeah. I know. And our thing was, if you can only give us a little advance, we want more points on the record. And they were like, well, it probably won't sell that much. We've only given it a little advance. You know, you can have 20 points because the standard deal was 16. So we got like 20% profits on the record.
What?
I know.
Oh my God.
I know. And that was the same thing. It's like, well, we can't afford to get someone to engineer it for us, so we're going to do it. So, and we didn't know you don't make a record on a 1/4-inch tape machine back then because it was all 2-inch tape machines. You know.
Yeah.
But we'll put tea towels on the drums and we'll put 2 mics on top of them because the singer's got to put a live vocal down, and we want to put 1 mic on the guitar so we can do a guide. And you go, but those drums sound really good, so let's not do them again.
Yeah. But that's how it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, that's how the best stuff comes about. It's, again, like the adapting and innovating with what you have.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Oh, that's really cool.
And,
I want to track drums. I don't get to track drums very often anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's tough, isn't it? Because obviously that's the whole thing with budgets these days as well. It's like a lot of people have got, a lot of, producers and engineers have got a setup that where they can do a lot of tracking, dubs and mixing, but it's the drum thing, isn't it? So it's like, that's kind of what's keeping a lot of commercial studios still running is, okay, drums, it's a lot of mics and it's a lot of noise.
Oh, that's so cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Oh, no, it's fine. And then through all that, then you meet other people, and then you end up working with, playing bass for The Who at Live 8. Duh. With one rehearsal the day before.
Wow.
I know.
That's the way it is, though, isn't it? Really,
Yeah.
in those environments.
Of course it is. Yeah. You just said as you did, and I said, you just go, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, of course I'll do it. And then you go, shit. Work backwards. Got to learn these really complex things that I know to listen to, but I couldn't play. So then you work out your own way round of it sounding similar-ish,
Yeah.
but different. So you try and bring something different. Oh, I'll play less notes. I'll play lower, louder ones in this bit.
Yeah.
So it's got more power through a huge PA than on a record and stuff like that. Anyway, enough about me. Let's move into balcony TV because that's such an awesome platform itself. So how did that come about?
That is a great example of seeing something on social media and just going, I could do that. So again, I'm going to credit my mum here.
Uh-huh.
They were doing a balcony TV, balcony TV were doing a session, and the day before they were doing one of their filming sessions, the audio engineer dropped out. And so they did a tweet out being like, last minute call, does anyone know any audio engineers that might be able to do this? This is what required of them. And my mum was like, yeah, I reckon my daughter could do it. I think I was like 18. I didn't have a portable setup really. And she was like, it was in Balham, and I live in Hertfordshire. And so basically, yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, it's in like South London, and the call time, I think, was like 8 a.m. or something. So we were going to have to leave at like 6 a.m. to like travel across the entire of London. And I didn't know what gear I needed. So I bought like a massive amp. And then I bought like my interface. I bought all of my microphones. I bought every bloody XLR I had. And then it turned out it was on the 5th floor of a building. And there was no no elevator. So classic hauling everything up to like the top. Oh my God. And good job I brought all that gear, because I had a 7-piece band with a brass section in on that day.
Oh
but
my
you know,
God.
what is it, baptism by fire? Like
Yeah.
whatever, just go for it. And it went really, really well. And then they were like, "Oh, do you want to just be the engineer?" And I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
In all honesty, though, I didn't get paid for it.
Right.
You know, it was really good experience. It did get a bit tedious when I had to. We were filming in Soho for a while, and like NCP parking,
Oh, it's
because
a
like no one
nightmare.
else had to park in the team. I had to park. Again, not dragging balcony TV, but just to give context of some of the things that you end up doing for projects. And I ended up getting a few clients from balcony TV that I then could use my home studio. But ultimately, I think it was like a year and a half, 2 years I was doing it.
Wow.
Just really good experience.
Yeah.
And then I ended up passing it on to Martin from Cream Room, and he ended up working on it in the whole format change, and he still does it now. I think he's the producer of the show.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, yeah. That's
Balcony TV.
how I got balcony TV.
But that's really, I mean, being able to handle those situations as well. You know, the baptism of fire, particularly if you think, oh, you get up, you're really early, you know, you're really tired because you got up early, then you've got the stress of getting all the way across London. You're kind of thinking, what do I need to do when I get there? What's it going to be like? Have I got all the right equipment? Your mind's going, you get there, it's like, oh shit, I've got to take all the stuff up there. So already you're flustered, you're a bit sticky, I'm a bit, and then it's a 7-piece band with a brass section. It'd be fun.
I mean, we normally did like 7 bands a day. So that was just one of the bands.
God.
I know, it's a bit like, I literally don't think I could do that now. I think I'd be so stressed and so like whatever. And I remember being so stressed doing it. And like, I was the only one that didn't get lunch because I was setting up between all the sessions and like logging all of the thing and making sure you don't lose anything, backing up everything because like it's live. Oh my God. Yeah, I don't, but those moments are moments that made me become an incredibly, like a much better engineer. Because previously in the studio, it's such a slow environment. You can kind of like, work out what I need to plug in. You know, I'm usually mainly just using a mic into an interface. And although those setups were just mics into interface, I wasn't running through any preamps. It's still like, got to log, you know, I'm using, 16 channels or something. So it's like, you have to be really good at understanding. I've also got to create a monitor system as well for in-ear headphones. How am I going to do that? Like, I just had to work it out on the fly. And then I got really good at using Logic and like all of the IO on Logic because I'm like, I've got to do it.
I've got to do it. Yeah, I've got to work it out because no one else is going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those sort of things are amazing because then people will watch balcony TV and they won't know the setup behind it. They'll think it's like really swish and fantastic. It's like when you do radio sessions, and I've done millions, but I've done some recently because I worked with Richard Ashcroft. And the first one we did, it was like, I don't know, it was Chris Evans' show at like 6 o'clock in the morning. So we're staying at Richard's house and we have to go all the way to the other side of London. There's no crew because it's just me, him and the drummer. The drummer turns up. Richard hasn't even brought a guitar tuner. I've got a guitar tuner. There's one set of headphones. So he's playing acoustic, the drummer's playing, I'm playing bass. I can't hear him at all. And it's in Chris Evans' studio, which is tiny. Michelle Pfeiffer is in there and David Walliams, and it's so small, he's sitting on the end of my knee whilst I'm trying to tune Richard's guitar and we're going live in 30 seconds. And then you do it and people go, oh, wow, that was amazing. And you're thinking, no, that was one of the most stressful, awkward, weirdest things. But when you do stuff like that, you don't ever get flustered again. You go, oh, it's fine.
Oh my God, that is stressing me out, hearing it. Also just very relatable. I think it's relatable to a lot of people that work in the industry. You know the feeling in that moment. You're like, okay, let's go.
It's
you do
be
that.
Fine. Yeah. But it's the sort of world that we kind of put ourselves in. Not that we knew when we were, starting out as kids, going, come on, why? I mean, I'm in a band, I'm 11 years old. Why is it taking so long?
So, just for more anecdotal stories, when we had one of our gigs, like this is just the lamest thing. It's like one of my guitar strings broke, and just in the middle of the set, we were like, okay, like I'll fix that. And I was like, oh, I don't have a guitar string. And then like the neighbor was like, oh, like I have one. Well, okay. So like the gigs just stopped during this time. The neighbor's gone to his house, found a guitar string, come back. I don't know how to string a guitar.
Yeah.
I'm 11.
Yeah.
Like, spend maybe like 15 to 20 minutes trying to restring this guitar, and then like we go back to just playing our terrible music. That probably like a half an hour interlude just like into the, and it's like, and I found that so stressful for every second that was like we weren't doing the song.
Yeah, well, I was like every second feels like a minute as well, because there's people there watching, you know.
Oh God.
Yeah, but you do your own music as well, don't you?
Yeah, I'm also an artist under the name DiDi, which is a play on my last name. My last name is Deakin Davies, aka like DD. It was kind of an antidote to a lot of the music I'd been producing, because I've been doing so much folk music, which I do love, but you know, it wasn't necessarily 100% what my heart is. I'm quite a Paramore fan, you know. So I thought I would do music that was. I also I had been touring with Emma McGrath for like 2 years, which was really epic. But again, her stuff was a bit more pop acoustic, and I just kind of wanted to do something that was like for me. It was the first time like I was like, I'm just gonna play whatever, and I wrote my first song, and it wasn't meant to be heard by anyone. But my mum was like, I really like it. You should release it. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And then it went really well, and people really liked it. And then I sparked off a whole artist career based on that. And then my second single, Awkward, got premiered on BBC Radio 6. Brilliant. And like I got loads of features and stuff. And now I have a band as well that like, so it's like DiDi, but like I always play with a band. And I've just like released music as that, and I feel a bit bad because I haven't, since I got the job with Gary, he never said I couldn't do music as an artist, but the reality is this takes up 112% of my time. It's very hard to have like an artist, and I was working weekends as well. I still kind of until lockdown. I was working weekends with all of the previous projects I had before I had the job with Gary, so it's just been a bit intense. I mean to do the two things, to be, you know, producer and engineer, and then have your own sort of, well, your own career. That is your career, but, you know, making your own art as well at the same time, instead of like contributing to everyone else's. That's really hard, isn't it, to keep the two things, like a massive plate, which is like other people saying, Lauren, can you be here? Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And the other one is you going, but I want to do this as well. These are plates, by the way, the imaginary plates in my hands. I like that plate as well.
It's my favourite plate. So, I mean, but from becoming a producer, first and foremost, and then doing your own stuff, do you think that influenced how you then wrote and made music?
Well, I think there's a stage before me being a producer as well, which is when I was in bands for ages. So for me, my natural state is always being in a band. And there was just this small time where I just wasn't in a band, and I just made my own. Like I was just like, I need to be on stage, I need attention, cannot deal with this. So I feel like that's almost my baseline, is doing whatever, and then music production is something that I guess I would say excelled in alongside with it, and it was really easy to, well, not easy, I could make money off it, and that funded whatever project I was in at the time. And I love making music, and I love music production, and I love being a nerd. So they just, for me, they are two plates, but they're two plates that have smashed the food together, because they don't exist without the other in my mind. Yeah. Which I think would you relate to that?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Totally. It's also that thing when people talk about songwriting as though it's divorced from production. I think the two things become the same thing. And okay, you can sit down with a guitar and go, I'm writing a song, or a piano. But then when we just immediately then go, right, let's stick it in Logic or Pro Tools or whatever interface we've got, you know, or a DAW. And then you start writing with the technology around anyway, because you start going, oh, well, I'll put that over there, and then this, and then you get sound which sparks a melody and an idea. And the two things are not divorced for me. I think songwriting and production really do meld, unless you go like very old school, sort of like, you know, Tin Pan Alley songwriting, and then you've got like George Martin who comes and says, no, you sit over there, I'll press record.
Yeah.
I think, you know, as you said, 2 plates with food in the middle and you smash them together.
And it is messy and things fall off and go wrong all the time.
Yeah. But it's also like the bits that fall off and go wrong could be the really cool bits as well.
Yeah, exactly. You can make a whole starter out of it.
So then you did, so you know the whole black box thing as well, which like, you know, obviously Dave came from that, but you were working on that for quite a while, weren't you?
Yeah, well, that was because I was working at Sound Lab Studios. So, yeah, like with Balcony TV, I sought to be the producer for Balcony TV. With Black Box, I was an in-house engineer at the studio they usually do it at. But bloody hell, did that give me a crash course in music I had definitely not worked in before, and that I am forever grateful to like have experiencing. I honestly don't know, like with the circles I was in the folk music world and like indie rock, like yeah,
couldn't be further apart.
I know, but I'm still really like I'm really good friends with Python, one of the guys who was doing the filming, one of the producers of the show, and like we've ended up working on a track together as well, like literally like in lockdown. And but anyway, Black Box was it was so good. But it was so intense. It was more intense than Balcony TV. Like I don't want to be like the stereotype around rap music as like loads of drink and drugs, but it just was.
It just
I was like
just
so
is.
taken aback.
Yeah.
We were just like I'd literally be high by like inadvertent hotboxing just in the studio because of how much everyone's smoking. I don't want to out Black Box. I don't know. It's pretty obvious. That,
Yeah,
like,
of course it is. Everyone knows.
Like, I don't know. Like they literally sing about that, rap about that.
But it's also the thing which I think is really interesting is like you're coming into that as a white girl producer, you know, engineer into this very male-dominated. What do you call it? I'm going to say, well, drug-heavy, male-dominated situation in a music that you're not used to as well.
No, well, I like, you know, I could tell that I was making the other rappers and other artists feel uncomfortable as well, and like I don't blame them. I was so like, and it's not that I was scared. It's more just like I literally have zero experience in this environment or in this genre of music. So like, you know, of course that's going to be the case. And I think I actually changed quite a lot by making friends with people there and sort of having a wider view on genres of music. Because I think I had like I had a stereotypical view of being like, oh, all rap music's the same, and not trying to be dismissive, but like just not understanding the like subgenres and like how different everything is. And like, you know, I ended up finding music I really liked within various genres of different people doing it. But my job basically consisted of people coming in and being like, here's my track, and then me having to find it on YouTube and rip an MP3 of a backing track.
Oh my God.
Import it into the project.
Yeah.
And then them rap over it and it get filmed.
Wow.
And make sure I've tracked everything right.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a very I didn't have to do much as a producer. I was literally engineering just single vocal takes.
Yeah.
The thing that was interesting though was just how many people there were. So you'd normally have say 30 rappers in. We did 14-hour days usually. Wow. So it'd start at 12 and I'd usually get home about 2, if that's correct. Yeah, that's 14 hours, isn't it? Like 2 a.m. And then there'd be like 30 rappers in, and then each rapper would maybe have like 5 friends. And so it was just like people, like food vans parked up outside. They just knew there was going to be on the Black Box days, they just knew there was going to be so many people at the studio. And it wasn't a big studio, but like, yeah, I really retrospectively loved those sessions. I just wish I was cooler. Wish I was cooler, so I wouldn't have been so awkward the whole time.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like, but again, you dealt with the situation, and it's like if you'd analyse it, you'd go, well, I know nothing about this music, I know nothing about this the terms that would be referred to as well, the way people would speak about music and the sounds, you know, the vibe they're after.
Yeah.
Because you just go, oh, no, I can't do it. Because you didn't. You just go, yeah, I'll do it.
I can't take any credit for doing it in the sense that I chose to, because we did it once. We did it twice a month, so it wasn't like the standard thing that the studio did. But yeah, I'm so glad I did it. I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, I'd love to go back and just do. I'd love to do one now.
Yeah.
With like all of my experience, actually having friends there, like. And just be like, I wonder how different I would be, or if I could see the awkward little girl that was there like a year ago.
Amazing.
It was more than a year ago. It was like nearly 2 years ago now.
But even that, I mean, that's no time, is it really? You know, I mean, considering, you know, like from where you are, things you've done and then where you're now, and also the vast amount of records that you've produced and engineered as well, which is like, you know, if you scroll down your website, it's like, bloody hell. Which is, you know, for someone so young, smashing their plates together and dropping starters on the floor, I mean, it is amazing how you've gone from, okay, I'm going to go down to the shed at the bottom of the garden without a microphone, just use the condenser mic in the laptop and start making music. Even if you just think about that, it's like, well, that's not what you do for a start. But that's what's so cool about it, to go from there to like sitting here in Mr. Barlow's studio in such a short space of time, though, because a lot of people take a much longer time to get from the very, very start to, you know, to kind of where you are now.
Yeah, I think there's something that I do, and I recognize that some other people have done that have ended up getting quite far quite young. And I don't know if it's like privileged to be able to do this, but basically, I didn't do what I didn't want to do. If I didn't like a project, I would end it as soon as possible and leave. If I didn't want to do an activity, I won't do it. Like, and that kind of regards to the whole of life, which makes me kind of insufferable, I guess, to some other people, because I don't know, I'm quite accommodating, but like, you know, so for instance, like, I really loved working at Sound Lab, but I was just like, I don't want to work here anymore. I feel like it's reached the limit of like what I could do. I'm just going to freelance again for a while. It was so good for me to work I worked part-time at a studio, but I don't want to work here. And I was like, I feel like it's going to be okay. And then literally 3 weeks later, I landed a Gary Barlow job, and I didn't have that lined up.
Yeah.
I just left the other place. So again, I think that's like, it's really hard to do, to just say, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. But that is the way that you progress faster onto things, I think.
I 100% agree. I'm a terrible one for burning bridges as well.
Yeah.
If I don't want to do it, I've had enough of this. And then I might not have anything in front of me as well. Yeah. It's like when I left my old band, I just decided halfway through a tour, no, that's it, I'm out. Nothing lined up. You know, mortgage and all kinds of stuff. You know, it's like, that's very irresponsible. But if I hadn't, then I wouldn't have then done all the other stuff I then went on to do, because you'd stay in that and not be very happy doing it. As you said, you'd had enough for Sound Lab. It was great. You'd got to that point. It's like, now I want to go freelance.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I feel like maybe even the fact that I have no qualifications professionally, like, you know, in any sense, like I can't go to uni. I'd have to do my A-levels again to do it, which obviously is a disaster at this time. But like the fact that I think almost not having a plan B means that your plan A always works.
It's got to be a good plan A as well, isn't it? Yeah, I 100% agree. And also your plan A can meander around a bit. It doesn't have to be, okay, well, I've got to do it like this. It's just like, well, my plan A is I'm making music. So.
Yeah, I think something with that, though, is like the more I've grown and the more I've met more people and sort of everything, I think it would be naive for me to say that it wasn't having some form of financial stability in the sense that if something did go wrong, I could move back in with my parents, or I didn't need to have a job, or I didn't have such strong financial things leaning on me. So it meant I could pursue that. So I think, it's worth drawing attention to that element. But I think at the same time, you still can make decisions along the way that mean that you do make money, or you can be financially stable, and you don't have to force yourself to go through something that you really don't want to. Especially, I don't know if you feel this, but like, you've already chosen a very obscure career that nobody thinks you should do anyway. Like, you might as well do your own like bloody path.
Yeah, exactly. You may as well enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, totally. It's the thing is, like, you have one life, so live it. And then, as you said, you've had a certain like buffer zone of being able to not. Well, maybe if I haven't got anything in the diary, that's okay, because I'm not going to, be starving. But it's that thing of like, you've chosen, as you said, we've chosen, and everyone, who makes music have chosen to do something that is on face value stupid and a really daft thing to do with your life. So if you're going down that route, you may as well do the route you want to do and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've done a fair bit of sort of educational sort of talks and sort of motivational speaking. It sounds makes it sound like some sort of weird American strange church, but you've done a lot of talks as well.
Yeah, I mean, I am a cult leader, so it does.
Cult of DiDi.
I know, the DiDi cult. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, again, the reason why I ended up doing that sort of stuff is I felt like I had knowledge that was worth sharing, but the reality is I earned money doing it, and I also made really good contacts.
Yeah.
Also, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of a bit of an attention seeker. I like the attention.
Yeah.
I like being able to give advice and people listening and taking it on board. And it seems to have it seems to be genuine advice.
Yeah.
So, but I think maybe, my mum asking that question about the fear of things is, if your mindset is that you can do it, or that you'll be able to work it out, or like cheesy, if you believe in yourself, you'll be able to do it. You will be able to do it. And I think sometimes, you just need someone who is a professional in the field or is starting out to just be like, I think you can do it, like having that validation.
Yeah.
And so I like being in a position where I can be like, here are some of the accolades to prove that I am actually someone in my field. And I believe that you can do it too. And it's actually wonderful when you manage to do it right, because it is. There's nothing better, is there?
No, not at all. Absolutely not. No, it's. I mean, the payoff when when you play something back, or someone says something, or you hear it on the radio, or like you're doing a gig and people are going crazy. It's like the payoff is ridiculous for all the sort of ups and downs, and the self-doubt and the meandering, and then you may fall out with someone, and then you go, oh God, this person's really getting annoying me, and I can't get the right drum sound here, or I wish I was tracking drums today as opposed to editing, and all those sort of things.
Yeah.
And then you get the moments where people go, that's awesome, did you do that? And you go, oh yeah, boom. All right, so just before we wrap it up, can you pick 3 things that you've done in music that stand out for you for whatever reason, and then we'll put a link to them?
Okay. I guess I'm going to go for Diamond Girl by Kelly Oliver, because that was the first Radio 2 play. So that's...
Is that on your bio by any chance?
Pardon?
Does it mention on your bio that you got that played on Radio 2?
Probably. My bio is really excessive, I realise you're being facetious.
Of course I am. Sarcastic, I think.
Yeah, just like, oh yeah, well, that one. I've done so many bigger projects since then. I don't know why I'm clinging onto that so hard.
But that's why I said what stand out to you, not necessarily the biggest ones, because that was your first, like, oh my God, it's on national radio.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say maybe probably one of the tracks I really liked. I'm friends with everybody I produce, so they're going to be like, why didn't you pick me?
Yeah.
No, they won't be. They're all solid. But I would actually say my second one would be Limbo by Kate Dimbleby, which is Dimbleby from like the Dimblebees. And it was we made a whole album, and it was called Songbirds, and it was just vocals, like a cappella, but not just
Wow.
like as in like a vocal line with harmonies. It was like we made all of the instrument layers up. We made like all of the parts, like a whole texture of everything, which was the hardest thing I've ever had to mix. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God. But I thought what we did was so cool.
Wicked.
So that, like, probably Limbo by Kate Dimbleby. And then recently, I would say maybe How to Build a Girl, which I wrote with my friend Katie Ray and Girly. And that was on the, I don't know if you recently saw it, but like How to Build a Girl, the movie, we ended up writing the title track for the movie. So
As you do.
Yeah, well, that, you know what, this is a really good example of like how I ended up in that session. Me and Katie were just going to hang out that day anyway. And then Girly was like, oh, my session's been cancelled. Are you about? And I'm like, me and Girly know each other, and we've like on the same gig scene as well. And then Katie was just like, oh, like Girly's going to come over. Do you want to just come over anyway? And we were like, yeah, sure. So the three of us were just like hanging out in the studio. And then Girly had just said in the morning that she had been asked by Caitlin Moran if she could have a go at writing one of the songs for, the book that was getting turned into a movie. And so we were like, cool, I guess that's what we're doing today. And we wrote it, and they got picks, and now it's the title track of the movie.
Wicked.
You know, like that's just how it works.
Yeah. No, but I love that. It's just like, okay, it's almost like sort of serendipity or happenstance. And then you're in that situation. It's like, yeah, okay. Why not?
It's I'm working on like a big musical, it was meant to be a West End musical, which is completely out of my remit. I've never done anything like that before. Again, just said yes. But I got that because Gary suggested me to someone to do it. So it's like, the reality is word of mouth and people knowing people and talking about your projects openly is how you end up getting put on other projects.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's I just think it's so interesting.
Oh God, yeah, totally. But it's funny to go, I think you've done sort of the UK rap thing and now a musical.
Which has an amazing crossover, because I can't say much about the musical, but it's all about French rap. It's like what it is. And I was like, oh my God,
wow,
I have like this pool of people that I can now use, and like they're getting involved on the musical.
Wicked.
Like it's like that is perfect. And then like I managed to get some of the people from the folk world to do some of the soundtracks, and needed like cellos and string sections. Like, it's just like, it's like a movie at the end when everyone comes together on a project. It's like literally how my life feels.
Yeah, brilliant. That's awesome. Oh, there's one more question. I'd be remiss if I don't ask it. Do you have any tips for newbies with using DAWs?
I guess I only have experience from the way I did it, which was I ended up learning each skill set along the way for what I needed it for. So I never sat down and went, okay, I need to learn how to use reverb because I need to know how to use reverb. It was like, I want reverb on this. How do I put reverb on this? Or like, this sounds awful. It's really bassy. I guess I need to make it less bassy. Oh, that's called EQing it. Better EQ that. So like, my biggest advice for using a DAW is just start doing projects.
Yeah.
And you'll just learn how to do it because you've done it.
So I think advice for that is whatever you need to do at that moment, you learn, go, okay, well, I'll work out that. And before you know it, you're kind of just operating like with sort of second nature then, because things become muscle memory, don't they? Okay, you know where that is, all these sort of things.
Yeah. This sounds like maybe a dumb metaphor, but it's the one that's in my head, which is you don't know anything until you've done it. Like, as in, even if you've read about it or whatever, you don't know how it works until you do it.
That's good. Well, listen, I won't take any more time. So there's going to be a huge virtual round of applause when people actually be real when they're watching it, but I'm going to give you a real one now. Wow.
Thank you.
You're an absolute star. Lauren Deakin Davies.